Yesterday, both my colleague at the Ministry of Commerce and I gave a clear answer to this question. China and the US are not having any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. The US should not mislead the public.
President Donald Trump said that trade talks between the US and China are ongoing, and a White House official said lower-level in-person talks, as well as a phone call between US and Chinese staff, have taken place this week. Has the US tried to reach out to the Chinese side? If so, is China willing to engage in trade talks? Second question, China is considering exempting some US imports from its 125% tariffs and is asking businesses to identify goods that could be eligible. Can China confirm this? Thank you.
On your first question, yesterday both my colleague at the Ministry of Commerce and I gave a clear answer to this question. China and the US are not having any consultation or negotiation on tariffs. The US should not mislead the public. On your second question, I'm not familiar with the specifics. I'd refer you to competent authorities. Next one, please.
CCTV. Recently, the Permanent Mission of China to the UN held an area formula meeting at the UN Security Council on the impact of unilateralism and bullying practices on international relations. Can you share more information about that? On April 23rd, Ambassador Fu Cong of the Permanent Mission of China to the UN chaired the UN Security Council Area Formula meeting on the impact of unilateralism and bullying practices on international relations. Representatives from over 80 countries, including UNSC members, attended the meeting. Ambassador Fu Cong stressed at the meeting that the U.S. tariffs levies seriously infringe upon the legitimate rights and interests of all countries, severely violate the WTO rules, and severely disrupt the global economic order. It is essentially about subverting the existing international economic and trade order by means of tariffs and putting the U.S. interests above the common good of the international community. The world needs openness and inclusiveness, not closure and isolation. Sovereign equality, not the strong bullying the weak. Fairness and justice, not putting one's own country first. And solidarity and cooperation, not division and confrontation. The international community must make the right choice, make its unified voice heard, and take joint actions. Many countries at the meeting called for upholding multilateralism, strengthening dialogue and cooperation, safeguarding the WTO-centered multilateral regime, abiding by the UN Charter and basic norms governing international relations, safeguarding the legitimate rights and interests of developing countries, and promoting the stability and development of all countries. We hope the U.S. will face up to the widespread concerns and strong call from the international community at the meeting, stop unilateral measures and bullying practices targeting other countries, and stop serving its own hegemony at the cost of other countries' legitimate rights and interests.
The U.S. government has concocted the so-called adherence to and compliance with arms control, non-proliferation and disarmament agreements and commitments year after year. It said nothing about the U.S.'s own negative moves in arms control, non-proliferation and disarmament, but instead has blamed other countries and made groundless vilification. This is typical hegemonic logic and double standards. China has made clear its opposition more than once and lodged serious protests. In arms control and non-proliferation, China upholds true multilateralism, firmly safeguards the international system with the UN at its core and the international order based on international law. We have earnestly fulfilled our international obligations and commitments and taken concrete actions to uphold the international arms control and non-proliferation system. The U.S. has vigorously built up its military strength, instigated major country confrontation, and undermined global and regional strategic stability. The U.S. has wantonly withdrawn from international treaties and organizations, ignored international order, rules, and obligations, and acted as the biggest disruptor to the international arms control and non-proliferation system. How ironic it is that the U.S. issued such a report. We urge the U.S. to take a hard look at itself, take active actions to respond to international concerns over its own compliance, and earnestly fulfill its international obligations and commitments rather than divert attention and shirk responsibility by slinging mud on China. Next one, please.
Yesterday, the Shenzhou 20 crewed spaceship blasted off successfully. Recently, China has worked with multiple countries in space cooperation, which was well received by other parties. That said, a handful of media say that relevant cooperation brings so-called threats to and risks for space. What's your comment? On April 24th, which marks China's 10th Space Day, the Shenzhou 20 crewed spaceship blasted off successfully. For years, China has made steady progress in its space exploration and expanded the space cooperation network. China signed nearly 200 intergovernmental space cooperation agreements with over 50 countries and international organizations. We took the lead in rolling out multilateral cooperation programs, including the BRICS Remote Sensing Satellite Constellation and the Belt and Road Space Information Corridor. We signed a cooperation agreement with Pakistan on selecting and training astronauts, worked with Brazil to jointly develop an Earth resource satellite, helped Global South countries train their own astronauts, and promoted technology sharing. In the near future, China's Chang'e will head to the moon, carrying international payloads from Egypt, Bahrain, Thailand, Italy, and Switzerland. In the exploration of the universe, China will always work with the rest of the world for the benefit of humanity. Next one, please.
AFP, U.S. President Trump has approved undersea mineral exploration for key technologies. This has received opposition from various sides. What's China's response to that?
The U.S. executive orders involves international seabed areas that do not belong to international countries' scope according to international law. The international seabed area and its resources are the common heritage of mankind. The exploration and exploitation of minerals in the international seabed area must be carried out in accordance with the UNCLOS and under the framework of the International Seabed Authority. The legal status and exploration regime of the international seabed area are universally recognized and followed through in international practice. No country should circumvent the ISA and international law and privately authorize any exploitation and exploration activities in the international seabed area at the expense of the common interests of the international community. The U.S. executive order also bears on the unilaterally and illegally designated continental shelf outside the 200 nautical miles. The U.S. authorizes the so-called external continental shelf to engage in mineral resources exploration and exploitation. This is against international law and undermines the overall interests of the international community. Such behaviors undermine and dismiss the international order and international law and reveal its hegemonic essence.